What does the beauty industry, the self-help industry, and the weight loss industry all have in common? And how might they be tripping you up and keeping you in a really unhelpful loop? Welcome to another episode of Coming to Your Senses, where we navigate the labyrinth of the mind and hopefully emerge victorious. I'm stumbling over my words because I'm getting very excited about this topic. This topic came about from a comment that I'd read on a YouTube video talking about self-help and about how to be the very best version of yourself. And it just triggered a lot of thinking for me that I thought I've just got to have a conversation around how these industries potentially are unhelpful. And I want to look at how you can break free from them, but still look good, still feel good, and still grow and evolve. It's not about staying static and just going, well, that's just how I am or how life is. It's still about there being growth and evolution in your life, but not necessarily as they might push it. One of the things that I notice about all of those industries, and it's not exclusive to those industries, but it's very prominently obvious for me anyway in those industries, and that the message is that they constantly sell you what's wrong. Their messages are, if your skin doesn't look this way, if your body doesn't look this way, if your life doesn't look this way, it's wrong. And here's the solution. We have the solution for you. And without having the perfect body shape, without having that flawless skin, without having the perfect life that's successful and amazing, then that must mean that I'm wrong. There's something wrong with me and I'm inadequate. And in my view, that's simply not true. And the reason I say that is because that's what I've experienced. I know from my own mistakes. So I grew up from from a very young age was covered head to toe in eczema. And my skin had a lot of reactions to whether it be bubble bath, whether it be makeup, whether it be skincare products, there were a lot of things that it didn't like, and it had quite a significant reaction. So I was always very conscious about how I looked and really wanted to cover it up. So that was fairly easy in colder weather because I could put on longer sleeves and long trousers and cover things up. But there's this one part of my body, my face, that was always exposed, and I was so conscious of that and how it looked. And yet the moment I hit 12, I can remember a family member buying me this magical box of makeup. It was like 3 layers worth. And I became obsessed with this. And to the point that from the age of 12, I think it was, I just would not leave the house without some form of makeup. A little bit of blusher, a little bit of lipstick, a little bit of mascara was my minimum, always something. And then as I got a little bit older and started to become even more self-conscious about my body, and growing up in the 80s, there was nothing that was focused towards different body shapes. It was all very much, the waif was very much in from a supermodel perspective. And my body was not that shape. It was very curvy. So therefore my perception, because the marketing world was saying to me that your body should look this way, stick thin and straight up and down, and mine looked the opposite. So therefore that makes me wrong. And they would sell me the solutions of weight loss on this and diet on that and don't eat this. And it wasn't even as prevalent as it is now. There was a very linear way of looking at it. There was none of the conversation around looking at natural foods versus processed foods. So I didn't know any of that. But it was very much, I spent so much of my time and so in so much misery, having been on these yo-yo diets, going backwards and forwards and thinking if I can just get it right and look right, then I will be right. And then in my late 20s, early 30s, I discovered full-on personal development, self-help, really. And it was this light at the end of the tunnel. And I found these books, and the first book was like, here's the solution. If you've got this wrong with you, here's the solution. And I read the book and I was like, yes, that's me. That's what's wrong with me. That's what's wrong with me. Did the solution, and it worked for a while. And then, because I was very diligent, very good student, always followed what they told me to do, and I would do it. But then at some point I'd still be doing it, but then this kind of stink of not feeling enough, adequate, right, good, whatever the word was at the time, started to permeate through. It was like I couldn't cover it up anymore. So I'd go looking for book 2, and I'd get book 2, and then they'd go, okay, well, if you're feeling inadequate and not great, then do this and do this. And I would do those things again with the same level of discipline and really do them. And they would be working for a certain period of time. And then at some point, again, that kind of stink would come through again of going, yeah, but I'm not really adequate. There is something wrong with me. And it would just come through again. And so I'd reach for another book and then another book. And then I'd think that teacher had the answer. And if only I did that course, and if only I went and studied with them. And I became a self-help junkie, just in the same way that I'd become addicted to yo-yo diets, and the same way I'd become addicted to I have to always wear makeup. All of those things were perpetuating this message of, if I get this thing, then I will feel good enough. And then I was always looking for that validation in the external world. Please tell me that I've got it right. Am I doing it right? And so I would look to, whether it be other people. There wasn't the social media back in that period that I'm thinking of. So it wasn't like I was looking for social media likes or follows. It was more that I was looking for, was I getting a smile from a boy, for example, or could I go into a shop and pick up a clothing shop and pick up a pair of size 12 trousers and put them on? And if they fit, yeah, then that may mean I was right. But boy, if they didn't fit, did I go into a spiral? If you've listened to the first episode of Coming to Your Senses, you'll know that in the early 2000s, I experienced a breakdown. I tried different therapies, but it was coaching that truly helped me transform my life. Initially, when I discovered coaching, though, I couldn't afford it. And it was a kind soul who sponsored me not only to have coaching, but also to train and become a coach. And my promise to them was that I would pay it forward. And I've done that in many ways over the years, initially through social media and private Facebook group called Confidence Revolution, and also through Coming to Your Senses, the podcast. But it triggered for me a passion to really want to make and create a secure, supportive space for people to be able to come together and have conversations that transform their lives. So I created the Conscious Conversations community. It's a group where we meet on more than once a month. We have a focused theme, which is guided by the community and facilitated by me. There's hundreds of hours of learning and resources and materials to help you transform your life in a like-minded space. Because I get passionate about it, and because this was my promise to pay it forward, I'm offering you the opportunity to trial it for £1 for the first month. If that appeals to you, then head to juleswyman.online/conscious conversations offer. juleswyman.online/conscious conversations offer to explore what's available for you through being part of a conscious community. Constantly looking for that external validation of that I am getting it right. Please tell me I'm getting it right, and looking to others for that. But I know as a coach, I can tell my clients how great they are. I can even give them the evidence and point to what it is. You know, they've got the house, the business, or they've got the successful relationship, or they've got the money in the bank, or whatever it is that I want to point to that I can obviously see that they have. And for a few seconds, sometimes a few minutes, they'll agree with me and go, yeah, I am. And then that stink starts coming through for them as well. So I'm pretty sure that you have, if you're listening to this, I'm pretty sure that you'll have something that you'll recognize, that when you're looking for that external validation, that it's fleeting, because it's not removing that internal perception of inadequacy, invalidity, or that there's something wrong with me. It's not removing that. It's covering it up for a period of time, but then that stink eats through again. Now, I'm not usually a fan of when you do X, then you'll feel great. But as I often think, it's not helpful, because when I lose the weight, then I'll feel good about myself. Or when my skin is smooth, when I've no longer got eczema, then people will like me. When I've done this course, then my life will be sorted. I'm not usually a fan of the when X, then I'll feel great. But in this instance, what I want to share with you today, it works and it's simple. But let me clarify something. Simple does not mean that it's easy. It's very important to recognize that, because I hear that very often in conversations with clients, when I will say, they will say back to me, gosh, that's really simple. And I have to emphasize to them, it is simple, but it's not easy. Just because you've seen it or you've heard it or you've got to grips with it in that moment doesn't mean to say that it's easy. It's a simple thing to do, but it's going to need practice. And the simplicity of it is that when you are trusting of you, then you will feel good more often. When you are trusting of you, then you will feel good more often. You'll experience more confidence, more calm, and potentially a lighter way of living. And the reason I say that is because that's what I've noticed. They're the words that I would attach to it. And I think it's important to clarify that trusting you isn't about you going, oh, that means I'm going to get everything right. That's completely the opposite of what I'm saying. What I'm saying is about you trusting you to have a go, and then trusting that you will learn from the outcome, because that's where the growth and the evolution comes from, is by you having a go. That's the growth, having a go, taking yourself out of that known zone into a new place. And the evolution then is learning from that. That's what you're doing time and time again. And it's trusting yourself to do that. It's not having an attachment to the outcome by having a go. It's knowing that whatever the outcome is, I'm going to learn from it. So a big part of this podcast for me is exactly that. I from the start, I can do videos. I'm okay with looking at the camera. I'm okay with doing audio. But I've been doing them for a little, I can't remember how many months now. It's got to be about 6 or 7 months now that the podcast has been going, that I'm recording this anyway. And I know that I've still got so much to learn from all sorts of different sides, whether it be about YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcasts, whether it's about the structure of the podcasts, whether it's about, is there a time of day to launch them? There's so many different possibilities. But that's not going to stop me from doing the thing, because it's about me trusting myself to have a go and then learn from the outcome and continue that learning process. But let's take public speaking, for example, because that's something that many, many people have fears around and they really don't want to do. So repeat the phrase again. When you are trusting of yourself, then you're going to feel good more often. So when you trust yourself, it's about having a go. So it's recognizing that if you're doing public speaking, if you've done your prep work, and that doesn't mean that you've written yourself out a script, but you at least know the flow of where it is that you're going. That's what I've got in front of me right now is a flow of where I'm going. It hasn't got it written out word for word, because otherwise I'd just have to read it and my head would be down. But what you'll do is, when you've got your preparation, you know the direction of travel of what it is that you want to say, you get up on that stage, you're going to learn something about it, whether that's in front of 2 people at an interview, or whether that's in front of 2,000 people at a big presentation, speaking engagement, for example. It might be a really uncomfortable thing for you to do, to be stood there in front of other people. And you might lose track of what it is that you're going to say. You might have to go back to your notes. You might have to have a swig of water or something like that. You might need to pause. Your tech might fail. There are all these possibilities of what can go on. But the thing is when you trust yourself to have a go and see what you can learn from the outcome, then you are going to grow through that experience. You know, if somebody, for example, one of the things that often gets asked, or people are afraid of where public speaking is concerned, is they think, what if somebody asks me a question that I don't know the answer to? 9 times out of 10, it's actually okay to say I don't know the answer. But very often, if you've done your preparation, so for example, what flashed up into my mind then was your kind of Shark's Tank, Dragon Den pitching scenario. Well, what if one of those investors asks me a question? I was like, well, if you've done your prep to the best of your ability, 9 times out of 10, they're going to be asking you questions about the business that you know about, the numbers that are within your business, et cetera, et cetera. So make sure you've got that information to hand. And if you're not somebody who's great at remembering those sorts of numbers, which I'm not great with that sort of thing, then have it written down. So at least you can go, I want to make sure that I'm giving you exactly the right numbers, and pull out your phone or your piece of paper or whatever that's got that there. But take a deep breath and have a go. Trust yourself to have a go. Because if you go and do, let's keep it with that, and pitch, and you don't get the investment that you want, it's like, okay, so what can I learn from that? There are very few people, very, very few people in this world that do something that get it right first time and consistently then get it right, whatever get it right means. That's why I'm putting it in bunny ears quotation marks if you're listening, not watching this. And I remember one of my learnings around this was when this is years ago, I went and did some improv comedy workshops. I remember the first 2 or 3 times that I did it, the guy that was running it said to me, well, I don't think this one was actually directed to me, but he just said, can you all just stop trying to be funny? And I remember thinking, but this is an improv comedy. We've got to be funny. That's the kind of like the restriction there. That was the intention. I was trying in my head, I could hear, I was so desperately trying to get it right. And in this instance, getting it right would be making other people laugh. So when he said, stop trying to be funny, I was really confused. I was like, what do you mean stop trying to be funny? And then what I noticed is that we'd have, I don't know, say 4 of us were part of a little skit, and 2 of them were on the little stage, and 2 of us would be waiting to be tagged in. And what I noticed is I was so concentrating what was being said, but also then trying to write a script in my head. What am I going to say? What am I going to say? What am I going to say? That then I was creating more tension because I was so caught up in that I wasn't in the moment of what was being said. So I took a deep breath and I gave myself full permission to get it wrong, to completely stuff it up and look like an idiot, say the wrong thing. And what happened in that moment was that it meant I was trusting myself to just have a go and see what came out the other side. Now, there were times when I did that and I said something that was funny. And I still to this day don't know where it came from. And there were other times that I said something and it fell completely flat. But each time, whether it was funny or really not, I was learning something from it. It's just keep learning, keeping that experimentation going, that curiosity, that playfulness going. And when you practice trusting you more and more every day, answers are going to come. Clarity is going to come. It arises out of nowhere. And you start to realize that, at least in my experience, what I notice is that when you trust yourself even more, it's like the answers are within you and they just emerge out, and they need that trust in order to be able to come out. And again, I can refer it back to coaching because that's what I spend a majority of my time doing, is coaching and interacting with people in workshops. And what I notice is when I trust myself, I don't know what questions I'm going to ask. My clients will tell you that very often they walk in and they're like, I don't really know what to talk about. And then 2 hours will pass and they're like, oh my God, how did we get here? It's because I trust myself to know that the questions that will be helpful for that person are within me. I just need to trust that they're going to emerge. And when you have that level of trust, it is like this, the whole trust game that you may well have played on some kind of team away day, or even at school, where they line 8 people up, 4 people on each side, and they put their arms across and create this bed, and you fall backwards and they catch you. It's that, but internally, that you trust that you're going to catch yourself each time, that you're there to support. So even if, and I've said this in many coaching conversations of, I genuinely don't know what question to ask you right now or which direction to take. What do you think? And even if both of us sit there in a bit of silence for a while, something emerges that takes us on the next stage of the conversation, which will lead us to the next stage of the conversation, and so on and so forth. And I suspect that when you start to trust you even more, then you too will start to feel good more often, which is what my intention is for doing this podcast, is sharing my insights, my experiences, and sharing the people that I get to interact with and their experiences, so that can hopefully give you some reassurance, some connection, some confidence and trust within you. That's the intention behind it. So you don't need to, in my view, as I said at the beginning, these industries can be selling you the perception that there's something to fix. I don't think you need fixing. You need trusting for you, of you. And if you let go alongside that, if you let go of the external validation and trust you, remembering that that's not about trusting you to get it right, it's about trusting to have a go. In my experience, what you'll discover is that you are way more capable than you realized. And that's what I wanted to share with you today, to give you the opportunity to recognize that when you trust you, you will discover information, clarity, calmness in you, confidence within you that potentially you never knew was there. If this has resonated with you, if you've got an experience where you have trusted yourself and seen that growth and evolution come on the backside of that, or if you're in that point of going, I don't know what to do here, how do you do that? Then let me know in the comments. Let's get a conversation around this going so that we can, as a collective, start to support each other and ourselves to be able to be even more trusting of our life experience. And remember, if you know somebody who's caught up with that, when I look this way or when I have this, then I'll feel good about myself, share this episode with them so that they can remember that when you trust yourself, then you'll feel good more often, is potentially the only time I'm ever going to use the when this, then that phrase. I wish you the very best. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's podcast. Please do like, subscribe, and share so that you can stay connected with coming to your senses every single week. And I look forward to speaking to you very soon.